Hello, everyone. This is Eddie Aparicio, and I'm joined here by my co-host, Anthony Tuan Corral, and this is Buzzer Beaters, a podcast that is dedicated to basketball with an emphasis on the NBA. Buzzer Beaters is the property of Grumblings Media. You can find Buzzer Beaters at grumblingsmedia.com, Rumble, YouTube, under the profile Grumblings Media, as well as traditional podcast outlets such as Spotify, Google, Apple, and Pandora. You can also find us on Facebook and X, formerly known as Twitter. The format of this show, if this is your first time listening, is that both Twan and I pick two topics, and then we spend about 15 minutes per topic. We host each other's topics, and then our intent is to go about an hour for the show. So for this week, the two topics I always wanted to host, of course, we have to talk about the NBA playoffs, right? The NBA playoffs are going on right now, and a lot has happened since Twan and I last met. We'll go over all of those matchups, some of our observations, and then talk about the upcoming matchups in the semifinals. And then the second topic is one that we've intended to talk about for the last couple of weeks, and that's the Jontay Porter ban from the NBA. Jontay Porter was banned because he was providing confidential information to bettors, namely around prop bets that where he was involved in those prop bets. And, the NBA pretty much gave him a lifetime ban. So we want to go ahead and discuss whether or not that's fair. Was use it as an example because for sure he's not the only one who's done this, but they cracked down on him pretty hard. So anyway, so we'll go ahead and talk about that. Twan, what are the two topics you want to cover?
Sure. So the first one of my topics that I want to cover is, now that we're in the sunsetting careers of LeBron, Steph, a couple of other, older players, who's the new face of the NBA? Not only do I want to talk about who the new face of the NBA is, but I kind of want to get in with Eddie a little bit on what constitutes the face of the NBA. Is it merchandise selling? Is it who the kids know? Is it championships? Like, how do we decide that? So that's part of what I want to get into. And then for those of you that have caught it, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but Eddie and I did a show with Big John, Big Questions with Big John. And, one of the topics that we talked about on there that we would get to at some point, and today's kind of one of those days, is, stories about who we've met, famous people that we've met. Eddie's had some run-ins with both Gary Payton and Chuck Liddell. I had a run-in way back in the day with Charles Haley. So we want to talk a little bit about that and kind of give you a little bit of insight on our experience with some of those guys and along those lines.
Right on, Twan. Sounds like a good show here, man. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the NBA playoffs is here. We're right now in the semifinals, and a game just ended right now where the Celtics just beat the Cavaliers actually pretty massively. They beat them by over 20 points. Last week, how we got to this point is the Celtics beat the Heat, last week or in 5 games. And then the Cavs beat the Magic just recently in 7 games. So now we have the Celtics versus the Cavs coming up. That's already happening. And then also the Knicks in the East beat the Sixers in 6. And then the Pacers beat the Bucks in 6. Knicks lead the Pacers right now 1-0. As far as the matchups, Twan and I had this contest where we picked, like 3 weeks, even before the playoffs started, the playoff brackets and what we thought would happen. And so we get a point for the matchup if we win it, and also if we get it in the amount of games. So right now I'm ahead right now, Twan, 12-10. 12-10. So anyway, so as far as on the West, what happened is the OKC Thunder swept the Pelicans, and then the Mavs beat the Clippers in 6 games. And then the OKC Thunder is now, because of that, they're playing the Mavs. This actually happening tonight, the first game. And then also the Wolves swept the Suns, and then the Nuggets beat the Lakers. And then you see the Wolves already played the Nuggets, and they've already beaten them twice, and pretty impressively. So we'll get into that and break it down. So Twan, let's get into the East first. So we just saw that the Celtics just beat the Cavs, right? They beat them pretty impressively by over 20-something points, and it wasn't really close. It looks to me right now that Donovan Mitchell is carrying that team. He's pretty much, as good of a defensive team as the Celtics are, they can easily take, the top scoring guy out, right? And then have everybody else beat him. And unfortunately, Jared Allen, who's the big center, he's been out and he's missed like the last 4 or 5 games because of a rib contusion that's bothering him. So right now it's pretty much just the Donovan Mitchell show, along with, Evan Mobley, who, he had a pretty good game tonight. And then, at that point, they're dependent on someone like a Max Strus, a Darius Garland to kind of be supplemental scoring for Donovan Mitchell. And of course, the Donovan Mitchell, he scored a lot of points tonight, right? But he just can't do it. I mean, the Celtics are way too deep and way too defensive minded. They have like a beast of a defender in Drew Holiday, right? He can easily, not easily, but he can make it pretty hard on Donovan Mitchell, which, that's their approach. Make him as inefficient as possible. What have you seen so far?
So one thing to note is, the Celtics whooped them pretty bad without Kristaps Porzingis, right? He's out and might be out. If they keep winning, he might be out this whole series. The other one is Derek White. Like, where'd that dude come from? All of a sudden, this dude's putting in 25 to 35 points a game. He's clutch from the three. He is. Once he shaved his head, once he lost that little throw, once he lost that homie can't miss.
Well, he always got so much crap about that hairline because he had he had the hugest 8 head, right? He didn't
exactly. He ain't 4 head, he's 8 head. He was 10 head, right? He was like 10 fingers.
Yeah. But I told you about that backcourt a long time ago when you and I used to get together over the years about the Warriors and stuff in their playoff run. I used to tell you, man, that the Spurs had this dynamic duo of a guard with DeJounte Murray and Derek White, and they were both on the same team, but they flourished elsewhere, really, honestly. So anyway, go ahead. You were talking about Derek White.
So that, and then the Celtics beating the Heat. Just one interesting little, I'm an old guy. I'm old school. Jimmy Butler popped off and Riley smacked him. I know. I personally like that. I like when Pat Riley's kind of one of the older school, GMs and doesn't take much smack. And, we, on our Draymond show, we talked about, kind of harsher organizations and, Jimmy Butler was popping off, saying, he wasn't there. They could have won, blah, woulda, coulda, woulda, shoulda. And, Pat Riley's like, man, you weren't playing, so be quiet, basically. Yeah. So I kind of like that. And then the Knicks and Sixers. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but then, to put it in contrast, someone like Draymond Green's popping off, organizations just lets him do it. They just let him go, right? So you're seeing the contrast in styles of the organization, whereas you have the old school kind of, Pat Riley doesn't take any crap, and he just tries to, it's just like Popovich. They're from the same cloth, really.
Correct.
Similar cloths. I would say Popovich is probably more of a harsher cloth than Pat Riley. But Pat Riley, he's been there and done it, and he's 79 years old. And when you get to that age, man, the older you get, the less patient you get. And you're just going to go ahead and say what the hell you want, man. So that's what I
Well, yeah, and a byproduct of that is, Riley's been in Miami for forever. He's won forever. He's been in the league forever. Part of the side effect of these coaches, Darvin Ham, for example, just got fired.
Right.
I have no idea why, but they don't last very long in one place. And the way you earn respect and the way you can talk the way Pat Riley talks is when you've won and you've been somewhere for an extended period of time. I'm of the belief that Pat Riley was done with LeBron, which is why LeBron left Miami, because LeBron was trying to kind of be a mini GM there.
Right.
And Riley's like, no, we only got one GM. That's me. You can go, kind of deal. But, this is one of the side effects of these coaches that keep getting fired after a season or 2 seasons. It's hard for them to establish respect and longevity with an organization where they can voice off. You mentioned 2 guys, Popovich and Riley, and both have been with their organizations for, 10 plus years easily.
They establish the culture. It starts with them, really. And for that reason, a lot of players fear those guys, right? Because they know that they can't get away with those guys, any crap from those guys, right? Especially from Greg Popovich, right? But anyway, so you were talking about the Heat and Cavs.
Correct. And then I just wanted to bring up quickly the Pacers and Bucks, or the Pacers and not the Pacers and Bucks, the Sixers and Knicks. As I had the Sixers beating the Knicks.
Right.
I think it was in 6 or 7. I don't remember what I picked, but the Celtics are playing. The Knicks are playing really well. So I got to give them their kudos. I got to give them their flowers. They're playing really good. It's going to be interesting on this Pacers game. I thought the Pacers got jobbed. I'm not saying they would have won, but that offensive foul call,
that Miles Turner screen, right?
Yeah, that was just.
It was,
one of the things about the NBA is funny because I want to say 2 seasons ago, they made a big deal about, hey, if you flop, you're going to get a technical foul. Right. And now we're getting into crunch time where these things really matter. And I don't see that happening. Right. They kind of hid behind the fact that Miles Turner was moving. I'm not going to, he wasn't stationary. He did move a little. He didn't move to the degree to cause that type of impact. There's clearly some flopping going on there, but whatever. Like I said, I'm not saying the Pacers would have won, but I looked at that and I'm like, come on, man, let's just let the players play.
They should let the players play. Exactly. Right. I mean, and for the most part, the refs have been doing a pretty decent job, more towards the latter part of the NBA season and into the playoffs of kind of really swallowing the whistle and letting the players play. And then all of a sudden they kind of revert back to the way things were before that. And now they're making these questionable calls, and of course the NBA came out and issued a statement that the right call was made on that Miles Turner, screen, because everybody, all the media guys were kind of, Reggie Miller and all that. They were all saying, come on, man, you can't do that, right? Let the players play. Right.
Exactly.
So, but I got to tell you, man, that matchup, the Knicks and Pacers, man, that's must-see TV, honestly, because you have two real contrasting styles. You have a really defensive-minded team in the Knicks, and then you have an offensive-minded team. In this version of Run TMC, I'm gonna call him Run TMP right now because you have Tyrese, Miles, and then Pascal. That's Run TMP, right?
I like it.
So Run TMP right now these days playing against the Knicks, who are defensive minded, and right now that game was close. It could have gone either way, and that's foreshadowing of what's to come. I think this series is easy to go 7, and it's gonna be like when Reggie Miller played against the Knicks back then. It's gonna be
I was gonna say I was a little disappointed in TNT not letting Miller be on the broadcast for that particular game. He had the night game. I'm like, come on, man, put Reggie on there.
I know that's a good call. Like, all right, so as far as these matchups right now, both you and I have the Celtics coming out against the Cavs.
Yeah.
And then you have the Pacers coming out, and then I have the Knicks coming out. You have the Pacers in 7. I have the Knicks in 7. Right. Yeah. You have 2 games of or 2 points to make up with me. I'm ahead by 2 points, but you can easily get there right now with the Pacers if they beat the Knicks, and especially if you get the number of games correct, which I think for sure this one's going to go 7 games. So for sure we're each going to get a point on the amount of games that it goes. It just depends on who's going to win the matchup. So.
Well, we talking about points. When we get to the West, I think that's where I'm going to get my points.
Yeah. So so as far as the Pacers and Knicks, any key takeaways that you've observed that you've seen? I mean, right now it's Jalen Brunson, carrying the Knicks right now, and then of course Dante DiVincenzo with some timely shooting on his end, right? I mean, and then of course you have the defense of OG Anunoby from the Knicks. Then you have Tyrese Halliburton on the Pacers pushing the floor. You have Miles Turner, who's like a difference maker. Unfortunately, the Warriors gonna have that guy, but damn it, he's on the Pacers still. Yeah. But and then you have Pascal Siakam. I think he's a great pickup for them. I mean, those 3 players are going to be a problem for the Knicks. Yeah. And he's easily going to go 7.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it not going 7. I'm curious as to who wins on the other's home court first. Indiana they got another shot. They got another shot here coming up. But yeah, they almost did it. And yeah, that's going to be a tough game. That's going to be a fun game to watch. I think that game, and when we get to the West, this Oklahoma Mavs series is going to be really. I'm actually, as soon as we're done here, I want to watch the rest of that game because I think that's going to be a good matchup. I'm really curious as to who's coming out of that.
Right. All right. So we both have the Celtics come out. You have the Pacers. I have the Knicks. We'll see what happens, man. But let's go to the West now, right?
All right. So
from the time that we last met, OKC had just swept the Pelicans. The Mavs, actually, when we last met, the Mavs had not beaten the Clippers yet, but the Mavs beat the Clippers in 6. So that sets up for the matchup that we're going to watch tonight after this podcast is OKC versus the Mavs. As far as our matchup with respect to the brackets, I picked the Warriors in this area, and they're nowhere near this. And then you picked the Mavs, so I'm gonna be rooting for OKC to take out the Mavs. Well, I think this is also a series that's gonna go 7, man. I mean, this series, a lot of these series are just great matchups. I think in particular OKC versus the Mavs is going to be just like the Knicks versus Pacers. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. So what's your takeaway on that matchup coming up for the OKC versus Mavs?
Yeah, on the Mavs, I like Luka, but what I didn't expect is that we were going to get very good Kyrie again, very well behaved Kyrie, very efforted Kyrie. And Kyrie is giving me hints of Cleveland days,
Man.
He is.
He puts people on skates, man. I mean, that guy's unbelievable dribbling ability, and his finishing ability is second to none. There's nobody who can finish like that guy.
And where I see his effort is, he's deferring scoring. He's playing real tough defense. He's doing everything he can to help his team kind of persevere. And so I wasn't expecting that. I mean, obviously I have no doubt Kyrie's one of the most talented point guards or guards in the NBA. I never doubted that. It's just where his head's at. Right. Sometimes he's in it. Sometimes he's not. There's always in the past there always seems to be a reason for him not to play for whatever it is.
Right.
And so he seems like he's all in it, and that's going to make the Mavs a dangerous team.
I agree. And the thing is, though, that the OKC Thunder, they play at a pace, man. They're a fast, just like a run TMP of the Pacers. Yep. They're a fast team, and they're a defensive-minded team. And even though they're young, they're very defensive-minded. It's going to be an interesting matchup. And, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be the guy probably guarding Luka. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a problem. He can guard, man. I mean, we saw, a couple, when the Warriors, took out the Mavs a few years ago, how Andrew Wiggins kind of caused problems for Luka Doncic. And Shai Gilgeous is probably better than Andrew Wiggins from the defensive end. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. I can't wait to watch the series.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one. I'll be honest with you. I want to see how this plays out. And, speaking about the Clippers, we hinted a little bit about this last week, and this is going to feed into some of the face of the NBA. But, we were down to the Clippers, and you could argue Milwaukee as kind of the old guard. Right. Man, the NBA, just this particular playoffs, you're really seeing the youth come.
The youth movement. And how fast the game is, man. I mean, these guys play fast. And they're super athletic, and the GMs around the league, they're going to have to rethink how they're going to go ahead and put together a roster now, because athleticism and speed right now is the game right now.
Well, yeah, and I'm telling you, teams like Phoenix, the Clippers, the Warriors,
the Bucks.
I think they're in for a world of hurt, because they're tight on movement. They can't move too much, and I just think the guys they have, they're not going to for this going forward, from this day going forward, they're just going to get older and slower, and these young bucks are just going to get more experience and harder to beat.
Yeah, I'm afraid I have to agree with you based on what I've seen thus far. Absolutely, especially with the next series that we're going to talk about.
Yes,
with the Wolves.
Holy crap,
Wolves! Man, they look like a juggernaut. Honestly, man, that this team is impressing me in a big freaking way. You could see the Wolves, how they were defending the Nuggets and how frustrated the Nuggets got. You can see that they sped up Jokic. They sped him up, and Jokic plays at his own pace.
Yep.
And you can see the visible frustration with Jokic in being defended by not only Naz Reid, but also Karl Anthony Towns. And what makes last night's win against the Nuggets even more impressive is that the Wolves did this without Rudy Gobert, who just won, Defensive Player of the Year for the fourth time.
Yep.
So
they look better, Eddie. They look better defensively without Rudy Gobert. That was dude. They were everywhere.
Unbelievable.
Kevin Garnett, I think, was saying they're the Warriors of the defense. Like what the Warriors brought on offense, the Wolves are bringing on defense. He's equating them.
Dude, and they're long, man. They're long. I mean, the only guy who he's not long is Mike Conley. Other than that, everybody else is long, right? They got so much length on that team. It's they get in every passing lane because of their length, and they're just tenacious. You can see that they're all about defense. That defense fuels their offense. That is their strategy. And it's a really good strategy because right now, they were beating the Nuggets by 30 points, man, 31 points last night. Yep. And it wasn't even close.
No, it wasn't even that close.
Totally distraught.
Murray's throwing heat packs on the floor. They're losing it, bro. They're losing it.
Oh, yeah. And so let me ask you, do you see them coming back at all? Do you see this going 7? Or do you think
I think it'll be a gentleman's sweep at this point. I had it at 7 originally, but I think I think Denver's going to figure out a way to win one in Minnesota. I think that one of these next 2, they'll find a way, and then Minnesota will come back to Denver and end it.
Well, the other observation on me, and I don't think it's going to go 5. I think it's going to go 7 still. I still think Denver finds a way. they're champions, man. They got a lot of pride. I mean, they just got punched in the face, man. They had a plan until they got punched in the face. Now they have to figure out what to do now, because what I see right now is that the Wolves look way deeper than the Nuggets, way deeper than the Nuggets, right? The Nuggets right now, they seem like they're kind of like maybe, 5 deep, and after that, it's like a crapshoot right now, right? You don't know how good their bench is gonna be, and I think what's gonna happen is because they have to win, they're gonna just run these 5 players ragged because their bench isn't that deep, whereas Minnesota's is very deep. That's what I see happening, but they're champions. I think they're gonna find a way to push this to 7. They have way too much pride. We're gonna see a lot in Game 3, man. I mean,
the reason I don't agree with you is, when the Warriors won the championship 2 years ago, they went through Denver to get there. Yep. And Draymond Green annoyed the crud out of Jokic. He got into his head, and now granted, Murray wasn't playing, or I don't remember, was he playing? I don't think he was playing. I think he was still out with his leg injury.
Yes.
And so what I'm seeing is, I wouldn't say none of the defenders on Minnesota one-on-one are as good as Draymond in particular, but they've got 3 guys.
Yes.
Towns, Reed, and Gobert that can easily guard Jokic. And I'm seeing Jokic, like you said, he's speeding up. He's getting frustrated. I can't see them going more than 5 games. I can't.
You know what? I can't underestimate the heart of a champion. We know it. We've been there, with our team. They faced 3-1 deficits and they've come back, in the playoffs to go to the finals. They don't underestimate the heart of a champion. I think they're going to make adjustments and they're going to figure out a way to win in Game 3, because they know it's a must win in Game 3 or else this thing is over, right? So
and the thing that is clearly obvious about Minnesota is Anthony Edwards, and he's taken that leadership role. And he's put everybody else a rung lower in terms of pressure, in terms of what they've got to do, and everyone's comfortable in their role. Towns is kind of soft, so he as like a leader of a team, he's always been in question. But now Edwards is like, I got it, you do your thing, everybody else do their thing, and Edwards is really, really impressed me.
And the thing is, what impressed me too is that they were killing the Nuggets with Edwards hardly doing anything initially. I mean, they run up that 30-point lead with, Edwards really not really establishing himself. It's when the Nuggets started making a comeback, then Edwards kind of started taking over. But man, that dude is on another level now, and he could be a future face. I know I don't want to right, but he could definitely be a face of the NBA. We'll talk about that in another segment. But so I think we pretty much covered the playoffs. Right now, like I said, I'm leading 12-10. I think in the West is where you're going to make up, because the Mavs, you have the Mavs advancing. If they do, then you're going to pick up points there. And then of course the Wolves. I have the Nuggets. You have the Wolves. If the Wolves advance, then it's going to be game on till the conference finals and the finals.
So Eddie, let me ask you this real quick. Seeing how the Wolves are playing, just quick side conversation. You think they're favored against the Celtics if it gets that far?
No.
Okay.
No. Okay. I don't think so. But that would be a hell of a series. I don't think they'll be favored. Let's put it this way: if they win, let's just say if they sweep the Nuggets, and then let's just say they win the next series against Mavs or OKC, and they win in 5, then it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Then we'll see, because we know the Nuggets, not Nuggets, but the Celtics. They're gonna run right through the Cavs, man. They're gonna do it. Yeah. The Knicks are gonna give them some problems, but the Knicks are gonna try and slow them down. But still, the Celtics are gonna be an overmatch for the Knicks as well.
Yeah, they got too much depth. There's too many,
and they're just too good, man. So, but if their head is right, they're gonna go through it, man, and they're gonna win it all, man. If their head is right, if they had that killer instinct, which we have yet to see yet, because they turn it off and on sometimes, right? So. All right, well, so that's it for this segment on the NBA playoffs and our observations. So the next topic that I wanted to host is, Jontay Porter, the younger brother of Michael Porter Jr. of the Nuggets, the small forward for the Nuggets. He got banned by the NBA about a month ago, and a little less than a month ago, and for essentially providing confidential information to bettors, especially for those prop bets where he was involved, where he stats based on rebounding or assists. He actually had already kind of told the bettors that, from what the investigation said, that he kind of was saying, hey, I'm going to go ahead and just say that I'm sick and or have an eye issue, and I'm going to leave, and then we're going to win that bet. And what happened is $80,000 bet was going to essentially pay out $1.1 million, right?
Yeah.
And then that when the bettors kind of, or the casinos or the sportsbooks said, this looks suspicious, man, we got to stop this thing. Then the whole thing investigation kind of blew up, man. But cracking down.
I'm kind of laughing, Ed. I'm kind of laughing because what kind of moron you got to be? Who's going to bet $80,000 on Jontay Porter just out of the
right? And that's
come on, man.
Well, and the thing is, Adam Silver just came out recently, a few days ago, kind of saying that, about this whole Jontay Porter issue, that they cracked down on him because, they don't want to disrupt the integrity of the game, and prop bets can do that, and in my opinion, prop bets in particular could be pretty dangerous too for some, for some players, right? Because some of these big gamblers, and some of these gamblers might be tied to the wrong people, right? Yep. You just never know, man. And if something goes awry by this player doing something that the gambler put a lot of money on, and they were already kind of like, I think there were some people that received death threats, even in fantasy football, related stuff. There's people who've go on social media and they start blowing up their Instagram about saying, man, you screwed me, man, because you didn't do this and do that. I'm going to go ahead and get you. I'm going to take out your family. You hear a lot of this stuff, right? So Adam Silver's trying to crack down on this because prop bets can be dangerous, especially for the players' safety, and then what Adam Silver's trying to crack down right now is prop bets, especially for two-way players. And Jontay Porter was a two-way player. So that, you kind of wonder, why would there be prop bets for players of that caliber? They should only do prop bets for players like our superstars or not superstars, but like, all-star caliber kind of players, right?
Players that make sense, that would be bet on.
Right. It doesn't make sense that someone like, Jontay Porter, who hardly plays, they'd have a prop bet on him. That's shady in itself. So I can see why Adam Silver's trying to crack down on this, man. It's wrong. They shouldn't be doing that. And the thing is, I understand why they cracked down on Jontay Porter, because, they want to set an example on him. Because if he was like a superstar player, he would have got a slap on the hand, man. He wouldn't have got a lifetime ban. He would have got fined majorly, right? But I don't think that he would have been banned from the NBA. Jontay Porter is only the second player in NBA history to be banned from the sport. The other guy is O.J. Mayo, and it was not gambling related. It was actually substance abuse related, constant substance abuse related. So, they're trying to crack down on this, set an example for the rest of the NBA, because, the NBA also had a black guy from Tim Donaghy. You remember that ref? There's a Netflix special. It's called it's called Untold Operation Flagrant Foul. Man, I watched a little bit of it. I have not watched the whole thing, man. But man, you can see like how the refs can really dictate, how the outcome of the game can go. You can see it. They can call games very closely, which Tim Donaghy was saying that he did, right? And then there was also some current refs in the NBA that kind of have been called out a little bit too, that they're questionable. So the NBA kind of has this black eye, if you will, from that scandal. And then now, with Jontay Porter coming up, this is another scandal. They have to kind of just nip that in the bud and set him as an example. So do you think that was fair? Do you think that the crackdown on Jontay was fair?
Yeah. For the simple reason, you can't be that obvious. First of all, it's going to sound like I'm excusing this behavior, but there's a couple of things going on here. Number one, dude, you can't bet $80,000 on yourself and you're a third or fourth tier player. It just doesn't make any sense. So from that sense, dude, you got to be out. You can't do that. But here's the thing, I hear a lot of people talking, these guys get a lot of money. There's no need to do it. I think most people that gamble or bet, realize that it's not always about the money. It's just competition. It's about winning. It's about getting that thrill, know, and the thing that worries me is that Jontay may be out of the league, but he's still got friends in the league. There's ways that he can redo what he's doing with the connections he has in the league. And, and with the refs, like you were just mentioning, just take this this Pacer Knicks game, right? Just the offensive foul, on the screen.
Like
Technically, that was a foul. Everyone thinks you should have just let it go. But,
Yes.
Now you're left to wonder, was the ref making the call because he had money on the Knicks? That's the danger. That's the danger with all of this. It makes everybody second guess every single decision. And of course, in any game, plays are going to be missed. And, and I'm sure that the refs, if they stuck to the technical rule, they could blow the whistle every time down. I mean, these are huge human beings hitting each other, bumping into each other. By the letter of the law, they could call fouls as often as they want. And that's
they can call fouls. They can call moving screen. They can call walks. I mean, there's so many travels in the NBA that happen almost on every freaking play, man. Honestly, some of these guys take multiple steps. There's videos on YouTube that talk about how many steps these guys are taking, and the refs let it go, right? So so these refs, they're inconsistent. But I can see why they're trying to crack down on this.
They're doing what they're supposed to.
They have to, just because the integrity of the game could be compromised.
It could, but this is a runaway train, Eddie. This is just you can do what you can do, but I think there'll always be questions. There'll always be people, and one thing that's crossed through my mind, not necessarily on prop bets, but just overall winning a game. All these players know when they're taking rest days. They know when their team is going to have a better chance to win versus not. Yeah. How does that play into this? LeBron's like, I'm not playing next week. Why don't you put some money on the other team next week because I won't be in the game? Kind of deal, right?
Sure that stuff happens.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't want to pick on LeBron. I'm not accusing him in particular. All these guys take rest games. And how's that going to work? All of a sudden people are like, dude, what are you doing?
Classic, man. Right on, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, man. I just wanted to kind of touch upon this topic because it has been a topic that has been, in the news on and off for the last month, and we intended to talk about this a few shows ago, but ran out of time, and but we had the time to do it today, and we I think we spent a lot of time on this already, and I think it's not going to go away, but at least it's good to see that there's developments happening to kind of maybe take the prop bet away, because I think again from a player safety standpoint, I think there's definitely some issues they have to crack down on a little bit more, and I think this was an example of that.
I agree. They need to definitely review prop bets and minimize those for low profile players. Or maybe remove it altogether. I don't know.
Or have a cap, only so much can be bet on it, right? Just because.
Or reserve for certain games only.
Whatever.
Like in the Super Bowl every year. You'll have prop bets on what the coin toss is going to be. How long the national anthem is going to go. So maybe when there's a special event, then you open the floodgates on the prop bets. But it's Monday night in Orlando. Who the hell cares? I mean, come on.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, that covers it for the Jontay Porter banning from the NBA. So let's go on to your topics, man. You have two topics you want to cover.
So I talked about it earlier, obviously. So the one I want to talk about today is the face of the NBA. Steph, LeBron, to some extent Giannis. He's still fairly young, but you got some of this older guard that's starting to fade away. In particular, these playoffs. We just talked about it a couple of minutes ago. The youth is coming with a vengeance. So who's the new face of the NBA? Who's going to be around, for the next 10 years representing? I have my own thoughts around this, but what I wanted to ask you and what I wanted to talk about is, kind of the definition of the face of the NBA, right? Because you have, like LeBron, ever since he got into the league, it seems like he was the face from day one. And why was he?
And rightfully so, though, honestly. I mean, because he was touted out of high school being this next coming of whatever, and how he handled it was very impressive. And he had a good head on his shoulders. His game, his size. I mean, he was a beast right from the outset. So it's rightfully so that he was kind of anointed that from the outset. Yes.
Yep. And then, of course, Steph and the Golden State Warriors, they come and they kind of change the game, especially Steph with his shooting range and his ability. And so he's arguably been the face of the NBA. I would say that those two stand out more. But the main reason those two stand out is because they've been in, 12 of the last 15 NBA finals. I mean, it just seems like they've been in it every year, And so that to me has always been the defining reason where you have a face of the NBA. Jordan was the face of the NBA. Why? Because he was going to finals. Larry and
Yep.
Magic were the face of the NBA. Why?
Yep.
Because they were going to the finals.
Right.
You know, Kobe Bryant was the face of the NBA. Why? Because he's going to the finals. Same thing
Correct.
for Shaq. So I think
Correct.
that to me is the driving force. But,
Yep.
you know, we had conversations in the past where, you know, it seems like the younger generation of basketball fans, they follow players more than they follow teams.
Yep.
And, you know, one of the things that we talked about was whether or not championships held as much weight as they once did. So I kind of wanted to have that conversation with you because, you know, I think that in particular, this finals could really alter, you know, what the face of the NBA, who the face of the NBA is.
Who the torch is going to be passed to, right? Once
Correct.
LeBron and Curry retire, who's going to be that guy?
Correct. Because right now, what I would tell you is, to me, if we're going by the way we've measured it in the past, you
Yes.
have to say it's Jokic, right? He's won a final.
Right. Yep.
Prior to playing Minnesota, the expectation was that they were the favorite to go to the finals again this year. We'll see how that plays out. But he was on the way. But if someone like Anthony Edwards or Tatum, you know, win the NBA finals, that all of a sudden they've got as many championships as Jokic has. So
yep. But here's what I would argue though, Twan.
Yeah.
If Curry and LeBron were to leave the game tomorrow, who would be the face of the NBA? You say Jokic, I would say right now it's Giannis. Giannis is the face of the NBA right now. Even though he's in a small market, he's very marketable. You see him in a lot of different commercials. You've seen him on the the iPhone, the Pixel camera phone thing. He's been on commercials for that. He's been on this soda commercial. We're plugging all these companies, man, without getting paid, but we're going to do it anyway, right?
Yes. Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So whatever that lemon lime's new flavor, he's been on that. But the kid is marketable, man. He had his own Disney show. Like, I don't know if you ever saw that movie about him. I watched it. It's actually pretty good. But you know, he's very marketable. He's got a great personality. He's got, you know, you already see these other commercials with the WNBA star. That she comes in and he wants to, you know, they're selling furniture and all that. So he's doing a lot of commercials right now because they see he's got a lot of personality and he's just very endearing. You know, he's just he doesn't take himself very seriously. You know, and I think that's why, you know, he, in my opinion, is the current face of the NBA, assuming that LeBron and Curry are no longer there. That's my call over Jokic. That's who I would think.
So good point. I mean, Jokic does have an element of Tim Duncan in him where he, you know, he's I don't know if you've seen him. He's on that commercial where they say he looks like Gru from Despicable 2 and he's talking to a psychiatrist or whatever. And, you know, they won't leave me alone. So he's beginning to kind of endear himself from a marketing perspective. I think he's playing on but you know, his overall attitude, at least it appears, you know, basketball's secondary. He has this, you know, love for horses and love for his home country. And, you know, that's kind of what he wants to focus on. And he doesn't, you know, like, I think I saw a clip where he's asking, when's the parade? Cause I got to go home. I don't want to be at no dang parade. You know, I want to get out of here. So, you know, some of that from a marketing perspective does diminish you and does diminish your brand because people look for the player to be as excited about playing as we are about watching them. Right.
Correct.
And Jokic
he's not like that. He's
turned that down a little bit.
He's not like that at all. You're right. He's very unassuming. And actually, it's a known thing that I heard it from some interview or something that I read recently where he's the type of personality type that doesn't want to be recognized by anybody. You know, he doesn't want to be known as this great NBA player. He doesn't like the fanfare. He doesn't like all the attention. He just wants to go home and be with his family and do stuff, you know, like an ordinary person and not have all this, you know, all these people look at him like this. He's like the next coming, right? He doesn't like it. He's that personality type. But, you know, he does have an endearing personality to him as well. You can see it in these commercials. The personality kind of comes out, right? You know, he's just kind of has this cool little accent that he has, and and you know,
he's kind of aloof and kind of, you know,
he's kind of laid back, easy going, right? But what's interesting, the point I'll bring up here, Twan, is that we both mentioned two players right now that are international players that are not born in the U.S.
Yes.
And let me ask you this: do you think the NBA is ready to pass the torch to somebody who is not from here? Right? Are they ready? Because the next guy you can also think about. You know, and I know you're probably going to bring up other players. Victor Wembanyama, man. That dude.
He's French,
you know, the French guy, he came out and he had the same kind of pressure. Not exactly, but similar to LeBron James. LeBron James coming out of, high school to be this second coming of Jordan, right? And then you have Wembanyama, who's like this freak of nature, 7'4", has guard-like skills, he's up for defensive player of the year as a rookie, so he's very, he's got a great personality. He's got, he's a good looking kid. He's just, you could tell that, he has this gravitas about him. So if you bring up these three players, these are all international players. Or is the NBA ready to pass the torch to an international player? Because I don't think that they've ever done that.
No, I agree. I mean, he had Akeem Olajuwon for a minute, and we can argue whether he was ever the face of the NBA.
No, because he got Jordan.
Yeah. And then Tim Duncan, I believe, was born in
Bahamas.
The Bahamas. So, technically, I guess you could argue he was international, but you had Jordan. So I personally, from my own perspective, I would think that it wouldn't matter. I think it speaks well of the NBA when you have guys like Dirk Nowitzki and, Petra who played, and what's the guy from the Nets that passed away?
Yeah, Drazen Petrovic, and I've always, Sharunas Marciulionis, that was a Warrior, he's from Lithuania, and, Andrew Bogut. So I think we've always kind of had these players, whether they're going to take the mantle and be, like I said, I think Giannis, we could argue Giannis is the face of the NBA. Even like the beginning. He would be, in my opinion. If those guys retire tomorrow, he'd be the face of the NBA right now.
Yeah, we could argue. And I don't think it would impact NBA fans, that much. I think that they'd be open to having an international player be the face of the NBA. As a matter of fact, I'm sure the NBA would love it because it opens the market not only here, but in their home country.
It's true. It's true.
Yao Ming,
Yao Ming actually was big. He was big. Yeah, he was big. And so was Pau Gasol initially, too, when he came
from Spain.
Yeah. A big deal out of him, too, right?
Yeah.
So, but as far as being the face of the NBA right now,
it's never been that guy. But again, you take me back to that guy is the guy that always goes to the finals, always wins. And right now, you have Giannis with one, Jokic with one,
right?
Curry and LeBron with 4 apiece.
Right.
They own that number right now. And until they retire, they're going to continue to own that number unless one of these young bucks, can come in there and start winning. Look at the NFL, right? Who's the face of the NFL? Mahomes. Why? Is it because he's lovable? No, because he's winning. Because he's winning. And I think at the end of the day, we don't get to decide. The winning decides.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So now we have, a bunch of new teams. Emerging teams, right? Yep. That are going to be, fighting for a championship. The Knicks haven't been there in quite some time. The Pacers haven't been there in quite some time. As far as going to the Western Conference Finals, then you have, the Mavericks, who haven't. It's been a long time for them too. As far as getting far, during the Jason Kidd days, then you have Denver. Or the Wolves. Though Denver's already been there, but the Wolves haven't. So it's like
Oklahoma.
It's all Oklahoma City. You have all of these guys that are potential going to get their first ring, right?
Yep.
If the Denver Nuggets get ousted, which looks like could be the possibility, right? But all the other teams really haven't had a ring, really, in a long ass time. I don't think the Knicks have one, or they if they do, it's like in the 50s. I can't remember, right? Yeah, the Celtics haven't, right? But the Celtics have had, they have the most. If they win another one, they're going to be 18 banners. So, but all these other teams, the Pacers, the Wolves, the OKC Thunder, it's exciting, man, to see these guys. So
it is very exciting. I've been this particular NBA playoffs. I've been very excited. I've been I really like watching a lot of these young guys, and what's funny is me being kind of the pessimist, every year before I've always once the Warriors aren't in it, there's always a player that I don't like. I don't want Chris Paul to win something or I don't want, Patrick Beverly to win something or, there's always you're rooting more or the Lakers, get the Lakers out of here kind of conversation. Right. And this particular year, I really don't feel that for the bulk of the remaining teams. And you're right. I mean, every team once Denver, if Denver gets ousted, no matter who wins, that particular group of players will be their first championship.
Your first,
yeah,
absolutely,
it will be their first.
Yes, yeah, and the Celtics too. I mean, the Celtics have the most, but outside of the Celtics and the Nuggets, everybody else would be vying for a championship. And like I said, I don't remember if the Knicks ever won it. I don't think they have.
Yeah, I
And I
don't
don't
think so
well,
either.
the Wolves we know haven't
Yeah,
won
the
it.
Pacers haven't.
We know the Thunder haven't
The
because
Thunder,
they were previously the Supersonics, and the Supersonics never won it.
nope.
So
Thanks to MJ.
yeah, so
Yeah,
it's cool. It's cool to see, man. So all right,
yeah.
so let me ask you this: so out of the guys that could be vying for their first ring, out of who stands out to you as maybe the top 2 or 3 guys are the ones that could be the face of the NBA in the next 5 to 10 years, assuming they get their first ring this year? Who are some of these candidates that you see that could be?
Well, so I'm gonna excuse Victor Wembanyama right now because
Because
he's
he's
still
not in
too
it.
young. He's too young.
Yeah,
I think the odds-on favorite right now would be Luka, right? Which is yet another international player, right?
correct.
So I think he would be the odds-on favorite. I think Shea Gilgeous-Alexander may head that up. I mean, he's vying for an MVP. He may, depending on how this Mavs Thunder series goes. I think it can come down to that, at least for right now, for this current conversation. But the guy that right now is looking unstoppable in that is Anthony Edwards. I think
Yep.
Anthony Edwards is he's a monster. I mean,
He is.
he's shooting
Because
from
he's
the outside.
bulky. He's a big,
He's
strong
attacking on
kid,
the
man.
inside. I
He's
mean,
very athletic and he's strong. He's just a big, strong kid,
correct. And
He's no better than him.
he doesn't play like Jordan, but his
Skill set is similar.
his skill set, like the speed at which he plays at, the kind of not the movements, but the strengths that he have, they're very Jordan reminiscent.
Yeah, the explosiveness right now.
Correct.
And even his defense is actually pretty decent right now because
Yep.
he wasn't like that initially, man. That's ingrained in him now. He's definitely stepping up defensively more than I ever seen him before, especially this season. He's embraced it now, and that's what makes him very scary moving forward because the guy's only 21 or 22 years old. He's young, man. So, and he's been in this is finishing up his 3rd year, going on his 4th year. I mean,
Correct.
Dude, he's going to be a beast.
Same draft as Wiseman, and look at LaMelo Ball, right? He's same class, and LaMelo's missed 2 seasons, a season and a half.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
No, so I think Anthony Edwards has to, and not only that, when it comes to the face of the NBA, you also get extra points, in my opinion, when you're bringing up a team that's never won. That's why Jokic to me stands high because he brought Denver into it. Same thing with Milwaukee. Well, actually, Milwaukee had a championship with
Kareem.
Lou Alcindor at the time. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was playing there. They had a championship. But when you can bring up a new team, like Minnesota, who's never won, I think you get extra points for something like that.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good call, man. I agree. So
yeah.
Well, cool.
Now back to I think one of the players, just to talk about, because the Knicks are an exciting team, but I don't see Brunson as being the face of the NBA.
But the thing is, he's the New York media, man. They're going to hype that
guy.
No,
I know they're going to hype him.
Big time. Especially if they go to the finals, and especially if they win it. Oh,
so can you see Brunson being the face of the NBA?
I mean, he's unassuming, man. I mean, but he's got a good personality on him too. Like he's and his dad used to play in the NBA too, and because he's he's relatable. I think because he's a smaller guy. He was a 2nd-round pick. I'm surprised he slipped that far. Honestly, I was like, man, this guy is good. And I remember him at Villanova, man. I thought he was really good. And when he slipped to the 2nd round, I'm like, what? No way. So I think for all these factors, he's endearing, and I think people like endearing, marketable people. Okay. I want to say he's full of personality, like a Giannis. Giannis is full of personality, right? Brunson is not that, but because of his circumstances and where he plays, there's going to be a lot to say that if they win it. I think he might.
So let me ask you this: if this, as we predicted, if the Celtics move forward and win win the finals this year,
yes,
do you think that puts Jason Tatum in the driver's seat as being the face of the NBA?
No,
me neither.
I don't think so.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you a harsh question.
Okay.
Do you think Jason Tatum missed his window to be that guy?
I don't think he's just that guy. I think it's his persona, man. It's just the way he is. You can't be who you can't force somebody to be something, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think he's just that type of personality type. He's just more kind of like a affable, easygoing, kind of humble personality type. I don't see killer instinct in the guy. I see massive talent, but I don't see killer instinct in that guy at all. I don't see him kind of taking over a game just with his own mind, like a Kobe Bryant would, or Michael Jordan. Like, man, screw that. I'm gonna carry this team. I don't see that in him, But it's not, it's not everybody's that way, man. Right? You can only really point maybe 5 or 10 players in the NBA history to be kind of like that, right? So the odds are against people to be like that. But he's uber talented, man. I just don't think he has that gravitas to be the face of the NBA. Luka Doncic has it. Giannis has it. Victor Wembanyama has it. Anthony Edwards for sure has it in spades.
What about Embiid?
Embiid has a lot of personality too, but I don't think he has it either. I don't think so. Brunson, I don't think he has it, naturally, but who knows? The media could hype him up. He can get coached up, especially if they win it. But Jason Tatum, as far as the face of the NBA, I don't see it. He's definitely going to be considered a great player when his career ends, because of how he plays.
Who I think has it but needs more opportunity is Maxey.
Yeah, he definitely has it.
I like that case. He's got a smile on his face. He plays with like this
joy, kind of just like Curry. Curry's the
essence
same
of Magic Johnson kind of attitude,
Exactly.
Happy go lucky. I like that. I like him.
Yep.
I like Maxey quite a bit.
I do too, man. I do too. Yeah. Right on, man. Well, hey, man. I think we covered this segment, man. It was a good topic to talk about. Who's going to get the torch once those the big icons in the NBA right now, LeBron and Stephen Curry, once they retire, which is probably within the next 3 years, to be honest, because they're going to be well into their 40s or close to 40. I know LeBron's going to be like 42 if that were to happen, and then Curry would be right around 40, in 3 years. So. But those guys are well-conditioned athletes. They could be here for the next 5 years. You never know, man. But
my thinking is though that torch is starting to get passed.
You're right now. The baton is, the race is having the guys wait for the baton, right? And they're coming to the finish. Yeah. So I hear you, man. So, all right, man. Well, let's go to the last topic, man. So go ahead and. I know you already hinted at it.
Let's do so. For those of you that aren't aware, we were on a show with Big John, Big Questions with Big John. And one of the things that came up, and by the way, if you get an opportunity, you should catch the show. You get to hear a little bit more about our background. John asked some pretty good questions in regards to, movies, stranded on an island, those type of things, so you guys might want to check that out.
My wife was pissed from that, by the way. She saw that and she's like, "What the hell are you talking about? Who's going to be suing people? What do you mean? Come on, I'm not telling you."
I know. Well, what happens, Eddie? You got greedy. You got greedy. You always get greedy, bro. You got to leave it. If you'd have left it at 1, you'd have been cool. But you didn't do that.
No, I know. You have to hear him, bro.
All right. So one of the things we talked about that we hinted at was, Eddie and I, like I'm sure like a lot of you out there have had run-ins with famous people. Eddie's had a couple of run-ins with Gary, one with Gary Payton, one with Chuck Liddell. And I've had one with Charles Haley. And so we kind of wanted to talk about those stories because seeing that Eddie has 2 and I have 1, I'm thinking, Eddie, you start with either one, Chuck or Peyton, and then I'll put my Haley in the middle, and then we'll end up on with your other story.
So I'll start with the one that happened first. So I went to college at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I went to go study electrical engineering, and hard-ass school, man, let me tell you. And it's an underrated party school, honestly, because of these a lot of these degrees are tough, just like engineering, and a lot of these students have to blow off steam. So there's a lot of parties going on all the time, more than people think about Cal Poly, right? Because it's a dry campus. That means that they don't serve alcohol. At least at the time when I was going there, they didn't serve alcohol at the time when I was on campus, right? That's what they classify as a dry campus. But I think they serve it now, so it's no longer a dry campus. But anyway, so. I've always been the size that I'm at right now. I mean, actually, I've lost a lot of weight, Twan. So, when I was, maybe like 15 years ago, when I was lifting weights pretty hardcore, I was 50 pounds more than I am now, right? So I was like 270-ish, 275. And I've lost 50 pounds since. So I'm back down to my high school weight, or pretty close to, actually, my college weight, which is where I was at 225.
So I, for one, can vouch. You've always been this big.
Yeah,
we were 16 years old and you were this big. You've always had to shave. I think you came out with a 5-day stubble, dude, when you were born. But go ahead.
But anyway, so the reason I'm telling you this context is because I'm the size that I'm at right now in college, right?
Yeah.
So one of the parties, a buddy of mine that I met through you meet various people at college. and he played football on the Cal Poly team, and he had a party at his complex, and he had asked me, he's like, "Hey Ed, do me a favor, man. I need somebody to kind of man the door. You're a bigger guy, you kind of got that, good intimidating look. I need you to kind of be kind of a bouncer at the door. Just make sure that the right people are coming to my party, that they're invited, this and that. Kind of keep track of how many people." I'm like,
"You got Roadhouse."
No problem, man. I'll do that. No problem, right?
Yeah.
So here I am, kind of manning the door and, letting people in, kind of checking who lives here. I had to ask that question. Of course, if they told me the right name, then yeah, they get in, or, so I had to check sometimes with the other person. But so anyway, as I was kind of, manning the door, I would look back, through the door, kind of see if I can find out where my friends are. Cause sometimes I had to ask him, do you know any of these people? Right. And he wasn't there, but man, I see this guy. He keeps like staring at me, bro. Like staring at me, like this, right?
Back in the day, he was dogging me. He
was dogging me, man. And he had the mohawk, right?
Yeah.
So I keep looking back at him, just kind of looking at him like,
"What's your problem, bro?"
No, I was just like, yeah, like that, right? He just kept on looking at me and staring at me. And I'm like, oh, crap, right? So then finally my buddy came over, and my buddy's like, "Hey, Eddie, how's it going, man? How you been?" I go, "Dude, everything's cool, man." He's like, "Do you need anything?" I'm like, "Dude, I just want to know who the hell is that guy just mugging me over here, man? He just keeps looking at me, that guy with the mohawk." And he's like, "Oh, dude," he's like, "Let me go ahead and introduce you to him. This guy's crazy, man. He's my roommate. Right?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay. This is probably why he was dogging me, because he's probably going, 'Hey, man, I'm Chuck Liddell. I don't need no bouncer bounce on my party, man.' He's probably looking at me like, 'Who the hell is this guy?' Right?"
Yeah.
So anyway, so he went to go introduce me to him, shook hands with him. And from that point forward, I always saw him, on the campus. We always kind of looked at each other. What's up? And then, after we graduated, the same friend of mine, we worked in the same industry. We were doing loans, and he was in title and so forth. And he told me, he's like, "Hey, man, remember my roommate at Cal Poly, Chuck Liddell?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I remember him." He's like, "Well, he's in the UFC, man. He's fighting, man." I'm like, "Oh, no shit." He's like, "Dude, you want to come out and see it?" And I couldn't do it at the time, unfortunately, but I was planning to go with him, to kind of, do a full circle, that, it was the same guy that I had, kind of like wondering, why is this guy beefing me? So anyway, so I told the story to somebody else who I played poker with, and the guy told me that he knew Chuck, and that Chuck was actually in college what Kimbo Slice was. So he actually would do street fighting back in college.
Oh.
And, he was a wrestler at Cal Poly. He played football and wrestled. So but he was doing street fighting. So he told me he was probably assessing why you're bouncing his house. He was probably wondering, is this guy a street fighter? Right. So, so that's the story about Chuck.
Nice. Man. So you met Chuck Liddell before he was Chuck Liddell.
Correct.
Nice.
I mean, at the time I was maybe 20 or 21. So we're similar age. I think he's like 2 years younger than me. So yeah. So right around.
How big was he compared to you?
He's I would say maybe about an inch taller than me, maybe right at 6, because I'm 5'11". He's at 6, and then I was probably maybe 15 to 20 pounds heavier than him, because I think he was roughly about 190 to 200 pounds, in that range. So yeah. So that's my story.
Yeah, that's a pretty good story. I like that. So that was before. So that's a story about fame, but when he wasn't famous. I like that. Like that. Nice. All right.
How about yours, man, with Charles Haley?
I'm gonna tell you my story about Charles Haley. So you'll have to forgive me on the year. I want to say it was 93 or 92. This was the year before Haley got traded to the Cowboys. Right. So it was in that summer. Right. And for those that don't know, back in the day in San Jose, California, there was this club called San Jose Live.
Oh, yeah.
San Jose. Yeah. So San Jose Live was it was a huge arena establishment. It had it had like a center room, and it had all these smaller rooms around. I want to say it was like 3 or 4 rooms. The main room had like a boxing ring where you could dance. So people would dance in the boxing ring. They had this piano room, which was like a piano in a pit, and everyone sat around, and you got in that room and sang, whatever songs they were playing, Billy Joel or whatever they were doing. And one of the things that I remember was that they had a bar, but the bar itself had no liquor bottles at the bar. Everything was in this room, and there was like these hoses that pretty much ran the liquor to the spout, the tap. So you would say, give me whatever, and they would just hit the button and it would siphon out from that room. And so you had people in that room when the bottles were empty, they would just put in a new bottle. So it was kind of cool. So we're at the bar, it was a buddy of mine. I can't remember which buddy, but we're sitting there and there's this massive human being next to us, right?
He's huge. I've seen him in person. He's massive. He is huge, man.
But he's in a way where I can't really, he's kind of like that, right? Yes. So I can't really see him.
Yes.
But I'm going, I keep looking. I tell my buddy, I'm like, dude, I think that's Charles Haley. Right? I keep looking, right? And he's all, that's not Charles Haley. And I go, no, I think that's Charles Haley. And so at one point, he turns around and puts his big claw on the bar. I mean, that hand was like,
no, you
couldn't see my head, bro.
Oh, no. I hear you.
And I'm like, dude, that's Charles Haley.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there and, Charles Haley, for those that know, he's a mean looking man.
He is.
He never very smiles.
Very intimidating.
Yes. And I'm also the kind of guy that typically doesn't bother famous people. Like, let them do what they're doing. But we're sitting at a bar. He's sitting right next to. And what's interesting enough, he's got a Kansas City Chiefs polo on. I have no idea why.
Uh-huh.
No idea why. And I'm looking and we're sitting there and I'm getting some liquid courage just to say something, So I turn to him and I go, hey, are you Charles Haley? And he just looks at me and he just like grunts. He goes, like that. And I see the Kansas City, right? And I go, hey, you got a Kansas City Chiefs polo on. What's up with the Niners? And Eddie, he turns to me with his big mug. And I don't know if this needs to get edited out or whatever, but he looks at me and he goes, man, fuck the Niners. That's what he says to me, like angry, flexing. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, and I'm just sitting there, dude, because he is huge. And I'm going, okay. Thanks, Mr. Haley. And we get up, get our drinks, and mosey on to the other end of the bar. But he's sitting there. And then that summer he got traded. If you remember, I believe the story was that he had urinated in Seifert's car through the sunroof or something had happened. It was like he was out of control. And then he went off to Dallas to win another 3 Super Bowls with them. Yep. And, and then so he went on. But yeah, that was my Haley story. But man, that dude was.
No, it's funny that you bring him up because I used to go to San Jose Live too, and I saw him there multiple times. And I've seen a lot of Niners in my time. I've seen Dwayne Board, I've seen Roger Craig, I've seen Garrison Hurst, I've seen Guy McIntyre and Charles Haley. And I got to tell you, and I've also seen the dude from Notre Dame, Hall of Famer, Bryant Young.
Yes,
he's massive, man.
Yes.
But out of all of those guys, Charles Haley looks the most intimidating.
Yeah.
And he's huge, right?
His hands are just massive.
No, I know. And for
me, if anyone ever gets the like, if anyone gets the vibe, like, I can play in the NFL, I'm like, I'm not getting tackled by that man. You're crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll disappear. I'll get eclipsed.
Right.
Yeah. So that's my little run-in with Charles Haley.
That's your brush with fame, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
Man. So.
Yeah. All right, now we got to hear about Gary Payton.
All right, man. So this will be quick because I know we're kind of running against it. We're already about an hour, and we try to limit it to an hour. But I'll tell the story within 10 minutes, if not less. All so right. The year the Warriors went to their first finals and they won their first championship. This was 2014-2015 season. Mm-hmm. I was I live in Pleasanton, California, and there is a mall right down the street from my house. And I had to go pick up some clothes that I had ordered the night before for work, right? So I went during lunchtime, and at the time I was, working, as you do outside sales, you kind of work from home quite a bit, right? So I was working from home and I went to go pick up some clothes at Macy's, and then there's nobody there, right? And then I'm walking over to the booth where I'm going to go get my clothes. And lo and behold, Gary Payton was at the cash register with a boatload of clothes, like on the freaking on the register, right, or on the table, right. So he's ringing all this stuff up, and I'm just waiting patiently behind him, right. And there's nobody around, man. It was just me and him. So then he turned around and looked at me, and then I went like that, what's up, like that. I'm like you. I don't get kind of overwhelmed by people who are famous. I kind of leave them be for the most part. Yep. But man, there was nobody else there, man. Yeah. So then I'm like, hey, Gary, I go, I got to tell you, man, I appreciate your game, man. I especially appreciated your trash talking, man. You're legendary about that, right? He's like, oh, man, appreciate, man. Then he went back to his own business. I'm like, so, Gary, I know you're an Oakland kid. So what do you think about the Warriors this year, man? Do you think they have a chance to win it? This is before they went to the championship, right? And he's like, come on, man. He's like, tell me one jump shooting team who has ever won a championship. So I'm like, let me think about that. Oh, the San Antonio Spurs, And he's like, San Antonio Spurs ain't no jump shooting team. And so I'm like, yeah, they can. They had like Sam Bowen. They had Ginobili. They had all these guys who could shoot the
Sean Elliott.
Right? Yeah, Sean Elliott, all these guys. And he's like, man, they're like more of a D, I'm like, no, but they can shoot. So he and I were bantering about this. And and I kept talking about, I'm like, come on, I go, it's gonna happen once, man. If any team's gonna do it, it's this team. This is your team, man. This is the team that you grew up like. And I was talking to him just like this. He's like, oh man, there's no way, man. There's no way. There's no way a jump shooting team would ever win it, right? So he was tapping into inner Charles Barkley, because that's what Charles Barkley used to say until the Warriors won it. And I called into the stations here locally, and I told that story because it was on the Matt Steinman's and Guru show, right? Here on 95.7 The Game here in San Francisco. And I called in with my moniker Bamford, right? That's what I used for my moniker, and I told that story, and they got a kick out of they were kind of talking about it after, saying, oh, man, Gary Payton is tapping into his inner Charles Barkley.
Yeah, his haterade.
Yeah, but it was cool, and I wish I can go back and just tell him, hey, Gary, what happened, man? Remember we talked, man? What happened? They won it, right? So,
no, if you ever see him, what you got to tell him is, Gary, you were right. It ain't never going to happen one time. It happened 4 times.
Yeah.
And it took the 2 greatest shooters in the history of the NBA, in my opinion.
Yep.
2 greatest shooters in the history of the NBA to do it.
And remember when Mark Jackson made that, when he called that? And everybody was like laughing. It was like, call my bluff, man. This is the best jump shooting backcourt you will ever see in the NBA history. Call my bluff. Holy crap, he was right? No,
that dude, he had some rough times towards the end with the Warriors, but he deserves a lot of credit.
Oh, for sure.
To what the Warriors became, what the Warriors are. And till this day, I know we're over, but it amazes me that he doesn't get another coaching job. I don't know what he's like on a personal level. I don't know how he runs a team. I don't know any of that, but damn, dude. Like, given the amount of turnover that we have in the NBA, like, how's that man not gotten another shot?
He got blacklisted, I think, because, he kind of rubbed a few people wrong in the locker room, because he kind of, mixed a lot of the religion with the team stuff. And not everybody, kind of rallies around that. And I think that's part of the reason why that he was, and he was a preacher part-time. I think he did that as well. So I think he did a lot of that, and it kind of rubbed some people the wrong way, So I think that's part of the reason why. And I think that he kind of also had the reputation of kind of rubbing some of the management off wrong as well. So I think that's part of it.
I know he pissed off Lacob and them, but I'm just like, at some point, if you want to win, he got the Warriors right there. Kerr came in and definitely took it to the next step. But if you've got a team that you just want to get built up, like he was like, like that was like for me for years, Don Nelson. Don Nelson's the guy to get you to a point. Then you got to put another coach in to win the championships, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Right. And so I'm thinking Mark Jackson could easily be that kind of guy. At least get your team with a good reputation, a solid foundation, and get going. And then if you got to switch gears, then do it. But
I think he'll get into the shot before, his tenure ends over at ESPN or wherever he's at right now. But he definitely deserves another shot, because
he got let go, from
that's right, he did,
from ABC, from ESPN. So he's not even announcing this year.
Yeah,
maybe he'll get a Laker job, and then a year later, LeBron will say, "That's it, it's over for you, get out."
Right. Right. Right on, man. Well, hey, bro, this has been a great show, man. Audience, we covered 4 topics. We talked about the NBA playoffs, which is something we're going to continue talking about every week. Get our observations, our analysis on the games. Then we talked about the Jontay Porter scandal. Whether it's fair, what you said as an example. Just gambling in general. Is it good for the NBA? It's always going to be here, right? It brings a lot of eyes to the NBA or any sport. We talked about also when Steph and LeBron retire. Who's going to be the next face of the NBA. We talked about certain players here and, some of the criteria that we thought who should be a face of the NBA and why, right? So we talked about that. And the last one we talked about was what Twan brought up, when we rubbed, our elbows with some people of fame. So I talked about Gary Payton and Chuck Liddell, and Twan talked about Charles Haley. So that's it for Buzzer Beaters episode 4. Eddie Aparicio. This is Anthony Twan Corral. You can find us on grumblingsmedia.com. Buzzer Beaters is a property of grumblingsmedia.com. You can find us also on Rumble, YouTube, under their profile Grumblings Media, as well as your traditional podcasts such as Spotify, Google, Apple, and Pandora. Also, you can find us on Facebook and X. Again, everybody, appreciate the time. Thanks for listening, and please give us any comments. We'd love to hear your comments and input for future episodes. Yeah. Twan, always great, man. Good to see you, bro. Later, brother.
Show. Thanks, Ed.
Yeah, you too, brother.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.